Well, let's bring in the Director of Programs at Aig-Imoukhuede Foundation, Chioma Njoku. Good to see you, and thanks for your time. That many Nigerians will say is right on the money and right on time, because now we're talking about some kind of dissatisfaction, which also comes from the public sector, the kind of reform that everyone has spoken about in times past. Help us make sense of the difference that this intends to gift to Nigerians, because this is not the first time there's been an attempt. What will make this different from previous ones we've ever had?
Thank you very much, and good evening. One of the key things that we realized in the course of the research was that although many commissions, committees have been established, the UDOJI, and the Philips and the likes, when we looked through the TORs, their terms of reference, we looked through their findings and their recommendations. One strand that we saw was that they were focusing on what we called the soft environment, the structural things about merging ministries, or remove director generals, put PAMSECs, remove this person, make them accounting officers. Those are structural things being talked about, right? Increasing salaries and all of that. But what we saw that was lacking largely was culture. The culture of the people, a mindset shift. And we saw that no matter how many new ministries you create or how much you merge ministries, if the same people are still put in there, nothing is going to happen differently. So one thing we're trying to focus on as a foundation is to say the people within the service need to be prioritized, need to be communicated with. So culture change, mindset shift is going to take a long time, because it didn't happen, the rot didn't happen in 2 days. It took decades. And that was also a learning we took from the national workshop, where one of the key speakers said, I think Dr. Aig-Imoukhuede, she mentioned the fact that it took many decades to get us to where we are now. So we shouldn't expect to have a turnaround in 2 years. We used to say it's a marathon, now we just say it's a journey. Reform is continuous, and the foundation is willing to keep pushing for as long as it takes to get us not back to where we were, but where we should be as Nigeria.
Did they talk about the fundamental changes in terms of culture, behavior, attitude and what have you, that need to be put in place for, for anything to happen in terms of reforms? And I heard President Obasanjo say that at the end of the day, it's really the buy-in of everybody that's important. Yeah.
Yes, very, very, very strongly. A very strong point that many of the speakers highlighted was communication and the need to build public trust. And that was a question that came up to say, okay, we are trying to, implement the Rosario report, which largely talks about merging, and downsizing government, but then we are creating new ones. So when Nigerians hear those kind of seemingly conflicting policies, they automatically lose trust, right? When the government is focused on doing things without consulting the people, getting the people's buy-in, it's difficult then for Nigerians to trust that what you're trying to do is in their own best interest, even if that is the case. So communicating with the stakeholders involved from the get-go, which is from the conceptualization of the particular reform effort you're trying to drive, is very important. The second thing is meritocracy, where people should be put in positions not because of who they know. There shouldn't be things like slots, job slots. This is something we saw in the research, where civil servants who answered the survey were canvassing for the cancellation of job slots. Why do we want to build a functional, efficient public service? And we say the DG has 10 slots, or the assembly has 50 slots, or this person has 20 slots. Why can't it be an open, open ground where people apply and based on merits are shortlisted and taken to the positions to deliver on the job?
So in this culture change, which you just highlighted, perhaps we should start talking about what we may be looking out for to ignite or activate this culture change. Because listening to you, I just realized that truly sometimes when a new sheriff is in town, because the culture hasn't changed from what it has always been, it's more or less like what can you do for us? It's our turn now to run and be in charge of the bakery and bake this whole thing. So what are we supposed to look out for so that we know that it has been activated and we embark on that journey you spoke about.
Awesome. During the workshop, another thing that stood out for me that I was happy about at the end of it was seeing the sincerity of the conversations. So the research findings were looked into, and I could see political office holders as well as career civil servants both embrace the reality of the problem. There was no blame pushing. Everybody was accepting what the facts were and how negative they were. So for me, the conversation has started. What the foundation is going to do as next steps is to continue it. Like the EVC mentioned, we have planned stakeholder engagements, not just this general national workshop, but focus group sessions with the private sector, with the political class, with the career civil servants, right, with the Nigerians, what we call service beneficiaries, to say these are the challenges, because we also realize that it does not take one stakeholder group to transform or to reform government. It's a whole of government, a whole of Nigeria approach. As Chioma and Njoku, I am responsible for how government runs. The media is responsible for how government runs. But how we see things is that we focus on the government isn't doing well. President Tinubu isn't doing well. That minister isn't doing well. But we don't ask ourselves, did you break a traffic light yesterday?
There you go. And that's where the issue is, the responsibility of the citizens, in changing our culture and national ethos. But let me still take you up very quickly on the issue of the civil service. A lot has been said about the need to reform the civil service, at least to take Nigeria to the post-independence, standing. Did that come up in terms of recommendations? What are some of the recommendations, were put on the table to change the civil service?
Of course it did. And I would say that the reform within the civil service has already begun. And it began from, I would say, from the work of the foundation as far back as 2017, where we supported the development of the Federal Civil Service Strategy and Implementation Plan. That was a 5-year plan that elapsed in 2020, and a new one was developed as will elapse in 2025. And within these plans are key, buckets that we call pillars of reforms that are being driven across the Federal Civil Service. And culture change, interestingly, is one of the enablers that was identified that can make things happen. Work automation, performance management, where staff are not just appraised arbitrarily, but how is the mandate of your ministry cascaded to every single staff. So usually the president will sign a performance contract with the ministers and the PAMSECs, but now it's been cascaded down to directors, where every staff has a KPI that fits into what the ministry is doing. So you're getting promoted, you're getting rewarded based on what you're actually doing. Right. And we've supported that for the past 3 years. And we've seen people who have done amazing things in their ministries who would ordinarily not have been recognized. And they're called out, they're rewarded, and they're spurred on to do better. Their colleagues are seeing that. That's change happening gradually, and they're beginning to affect their department, they're beginning to affect their subordinates to say, oh, if I do the right thing within my department, somebody's watching, and somebody is going to reward me at the end of the day. So that's really changing mindsets within the system. Excellent.
Chioma Njoku, Director of Programs, Aig-Imoukhuede Foundation. Thank you very much for joining us, and of course for what you do.